many corporate leaders who are here and the many leaders of NGOs who are here as well. There is an old African proverb that says, if you want to go quickly, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. We have to go far quickly. And having as many different points of view as possible brought together to focus on the most important challenge we have ever faced in the history of civilization, hopefully will enable us to move more quickly together. The climate crisis is, in my opinion, the most serious challenge our civilization has ever confronted. And I'm going to show you some pictures, but I want to begin by saying a brief word about the word crisis. In Espanol and in English, and by the way, forgive me for not being able to give my presentation in Espanol. I feel inadequate. My Spanish is simply not good enough. Believe me, this is better. But I hope the simultaneous translation works well for you. But in Espanol and in English, the word crisis conveys a sense of danger. The second one means opportunity. Together, crisis. I've always thought that is a better way to communicate about the concept of a crisis, because this is the most dangerous crisis we've ever confronted, but it also brings us the greatest opportunity that we have ever confronted. Most of the things we need to do all over the world to solve the climate crisis are things that we should be doing for other reasons anyway. And getting over the inertia that has prevented us from addressing air pollution and water pollution and inefficiency in business and industry. This is an opportunity that has great economic value. But the climate crisis must be confronted, because only by walking through the danger can we seize the opportunity. And because it's complex of this earth, we are not presently discharging that responsibility. The coral reefs are another example in the oceans this time. They're centers of biodiversity, and the higher ocean temperatures and the greater levels of acidity due to all the CO2 causes the corals to bleach. What that means is the life forms in the colorless skin of the coral get stressed and leave, revealing the skeletons of the coral. If this happens several years in a row, the coral reefs die. The oceans are at epidemic levels, or were last. And if they were all like this, it wouldn't matter very much. But in Japan, they have these kind. Typically, they would see one or two a year, but they had tens of thousands last year. 6 feet across, 100 pounds, ripping the fishing nets. They had to shut back a nuclear reactor last year because of these. You can almost hear God saying, "Hey, Pharaoh, vectors for emerging diseases include algae, mosquitoes, ticks, and these others. They expand their range in a warmer world. As a result, they get into areas where they didn't exist before. Mosquitoes go to higher altitudes in warmer air, and they breed more generations in a warmer world. Partly because of that, we've had 30 so-called new diseases in the last 30 years. None of them new, but new to many of us. Just as the large creatures of nature are on the run, so are the small creatures, the microbes. They're moving into new areas. All of these have their own causes. But the overall relationship between humanity and microbes is greatly affected by climate. What works best for us and holds back the germs are colder winters, colder nights, stable climate, and rich biodiversity. The climate crisis is moving all four in the wrong direction. Some diseases that once were under control are now resurgent. Malaria, for example. Dengue fever, as you know, is at very high levels in Bolivia. Also marching down the east coast of Australia. Also in Indonesia. Avian flu is a constant topic of discussion now. West Nile virus, I never worried about West Nile virus when I was growing up, but it hit the eastern shore of the United States in 1999, and within 2 years it was halfway across the country, and within another 2 years it had crossed the continent. And now it's a serious problem. It's from Egypt. It never really thrived before. Now it does. I'm going to show you the second canary in the coal mine. The second early warning system. Antarctica is the largest mass of ice on the planet, of course. As you know better than me, there are no real canaries in the coal mine, but there are birds, and they're quite extraordinary, and their habitat is at risk for the same reason the polar bear's habitat is at risk at the other end of the world. But the warning that I want to mention is from a scientist who's now deceased, Dr. John Mercer, who wrote at the time of my first congressional hearings on global warming, if you see the breakup of ice shelves on the Antarctic Peninsula, watch out. That should be heard as a warning bell that we're entering a new phase of global warming. 11 years after Dr. Mercer's warning, it started happening. Here's the peninsula. As you well know, here are the green areas that represent ice shelves larger than Luxembourg that have broken up since 1989. The most famous of these is called by the scientists, in reaching a treaty, phasing out the chemicals. We are well on the way to solving that crisis. Now we have to do it again. And we have to start by reasoning together and telling one another the truth about the climate crisis, the opportunity, as well as the danger. We have to have a different perspective this time, because never in the past has all of civilization been at risk. The last image I want to show you is an echo of one of the first. You remember that home movie of our planet? The unmanned spacecraft that was sent out to explore the universe? It's still going out there. And when it got 5 billion kilometers away, Carl Sagan said, let's take another picture of the Earth. What do we look like from 5 billion kilometers away? And in the right-hand part of this screen, you'll see a pale blue dot, as Sagan called it. Do you see it on the other screens? A pale blue dot, a speck of dust suspended in a sunbeam. The Incas built their empire on that pixel. The great voyages of discovery took place there. The Magna Carta, there. Everything that's ever happened in human history, the good and the bad, the triumphs and the tragedies, the advances and the setbacks, all of them have taken place on that tiny dot. It's our home. It is our only home. Someone wrote 2 weeks ago, the solution to global warming is to travel to other planets and colonize other planets. We couldn't even evacuate New Orleans. This is our home. We will make our stand here on behalf of our children. Its habitability is now at risk. We have everything we need to begin saving it, with the possible exception of political will. But in Chile, in the United States, and all over the world, political will is a renewable resource. Thank you very much.